Hello, everybody. John Emmett's the first one on in the comments section. Gordon Smith as well. Jonathan Frank is in Galveston. Oh, Galveston. Peter Taylor in New York City. Ed Worley here in SoCal, down there in SoCal, not here. I was in SoCal over the weekend. Welcome to you all. We have a great show. Henry Menin joining us live from Philadelphia after we get through the A block and John Emmett's superb report once again. Our second to last show, we'll do a show Friday, then Christmas on Sunday, and our show's Christmas night for the start of the Rolex Sydney to Hobart. Welcome.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, Mary Jude Szymanski, you'll be pleased to know that we've got somebody else on the show from Philadelphia. Mary Jude, who is a regular, is here. I see her on. Clark Chapin, greetings from currently sunny but soon to be blizzardy. Yeah, that's the understatement of the week, Clark, in Plymouth, Michigan. Sis, I didn't know you were a sister city to Plymouth, England. Clark living past Commodore, my little home club in Michigan, Portage Yacht Club, just east of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ted Ryman, hello from Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. Stingray up in snowy Seattle. We mentioned Mary Jude and a bunch of others on here already. Welcome to you all. Andrew Pindar is on. He's in France. Gordon Smith wanting to know what the Julia news is, and I'm pleased to report that while she's not here in her normal position at her desk, the co-host desk, she is back here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. Hooray! She got back yesterday afternoon. She's settling in. Her home help is settling in. And had the home help gotten here a little quicker and settled in a little better, she'd be down here sitting over there today because she really wanted to be here for the show today for all of you after these many weeks. What was it, 5 weeks? I can't remember now, but a good long haul. So yes, thank you for asking. Graham Sweeney in Shetland, up at Yell in Scotland. Julie Aarons, also in soon to be very snowy Cleveland. Gordon Smith saying, fantastic. Welcome home, Julia. Yeah, welcome home. And I haven't fixed her a cocktail yet. She said she maybe tonight I'll go upstairs and fix her a cocktail. Ricardo Lobato, hello. He's in Rio de Janeiro. Henry Menin standing politely and quietly by in Philadelphia, not too far from MJ, Mary Jude Szymanski. And Henry will be joining us here in a sec. He splits his time. He and his lovely, beautiful, smart wife, Friedel, split their time between Philly and St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Delighted to have them on the show. Be with them in a moment. In the meantime, we are at the pre-start. Recognize that boat? Anybody from the 2017 America's Cup? That's actually a picture taken on June 1st, 2017. America's Cup Challenger Selection Series Round Robin 2 in the Great Sound in Bermuda. Also, greetings here at the pre-start from the Commodore and the General Manager and others at the Gestad Yacht Club. They're really getting their pre-start, really the starting line now for the holiday season at the esteemed Gestad Yacht Club in Switzerland. I'm a proud founding member of that club and a great place. If you ever have the chance, I'm sure they'd welcome any yacht club member from around the world. You can go there and have a nice dinner, a cocktail or two in Gestad in Suiza in Switzerland. As you know, we on Friday's show, the first time we had done that, we did live to tape. I recorded the show Thursday afternoon so that I could go down and have a Christmas party with the It's Okay team, Andy Rose and co., with whom I sailed down to Newport Beach. This was the 114th annual Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade and Ring of Lights, meaning all the homes around Newport Harbor are lit up, in most of them, in just grand fashion. This competes favorably with those of you in the U.S. that know the Rose Bowl and the Rose Parade, the Tournament of Roses, which has been going on for just a year or two longer than this Christmas boat parade in Newport Beach, California. The floats are truly Disney-esque and amazing, fantastic. I've seen it I don't know how many times because we always have our Christmas party at the same time during the week. It's kind of a Wednesday through Sunday. They do this 4 or 5 nights. And here's a quick news report from a few days ago.
Well, this is apparently the longest running boat parade in the country, and people here say it's unforgettable. That's why they come back year after year. Christmas lights and fire glisten from the boats in Orange County tonight at the kickoff of the 114th annual Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade.
When it gets dark, all the boats start going around with lights. The lights are really cool.
This is a family tradition for many, like Miana. But Connor here has never seen anything quite like it before.
No.
What do you think about that?
It's cool.
Same for the Anderson family. They made an hour-and-a-half trek from Riverside to be here.
Oh, it's just gorgeous. Yeah. And it's only on for the 5 nights, so we're like, we have to be here the first night.
And it's a first-time experience for this special lady, too.
I'm the Grand Marshal!
The first time our very own Orange County reporter Michelle Gili was the Grand Marshal of the parade.
This tonight truly is a highlight of my career. I've never had anything like this.
The music, the fireworks, the local businesses, they were enjoyed by the little bears bundled up with their parents and the miniature reindeer prancing around town alike.
I've lived here in Southern California my whole life, since 1960, and just finally made it.
So fun and festive and just, another way to celebrate. Another way to celebrate the season.
They celebrated as the decked out boats took a slow 14-mile spin around the Newport Harbor. And the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade runs nightly from now through Sunday, the 18th. Reporting in Newport Beach, I'm Nicole Comstock, KCAL 9 News.
These boat parades are done this time of year, I'm sure, in your home ports as well. It's done here in San Francisco, although it's cold, they don't get nearly as developed. These are like Disney, as I said, Disney floats. They're like the Macy's Day Parade in New York on Thanksgiving. They do a couple of these down in San Diego and various other places, I'm sure. But I've never seen anything like this one. If you get the chance to go to the Newport Beach boat parade, holiday boat parade, do take the chance. This is my home club. I call Balboa Yacht Club, of course, a member of a few others, including the esteemed St. Francis here in San Francisco, where Julia is a member. Balboa Yacht Club celebrating its 100th year this year. That was a photo from the other night, I think the first night of the parade when the boats are going by. They go right by both Balboa Yacht Club and Newport Harbor Yacht Club. And all around, did she say on that video report, 17 miles or something? It's a long parade. I played the banjo in that parade with the Santa float, singing Christmas all around, Christmas songs, carols. And this is the esteemed Newport Harbor Yacht Club. I showed this picture the other day. Several of you asked, is that their new clubhouse? Yes, it is. The Newport Harbor Yacht Club was like a lot of the peninsula, like a lot of the land around the country, Florida and so on, was literally sinking into the ocean. This is the ocean on the backside here, this Pacific Ocean, where we run the Governor's Cup. Right, in fact, right here in these waters between these two piers. There's another pier off here to the right. And Newport Harbor Yacht Club, they finally scraped it, and the parking lot was flooding. The first floor of the clubhouse was flooding. There's still a little flooding over here in the boat park. They scraped it, raised it, built it up, including the parking lot behind. And it's just a fantastic venue. They did a great job. It's still traditional inside, but it's all modern. It's all been nicely done up. Bravo Zulu to them. And I got, again, for the second time, I got the Cook's Tour the other day from Dion and Peter McDonald, who took us to brunch on Sunday at the Newport Harbor Yacht Club. So it was a great weekend, and thank you to all of them for their hospitality. While we were down there, got up early Sunday morning, despite having a bit of a large night the night before, to watch this amazing match. And we've been talking about the World Cup on this show. Of course, it affects all of us in one way or another. And I think it's fair to say the American public really warmed up to this thing, the non-soccer, the non-football public. But the most exciting and historic World Cup final ever played, only the second hat trick and second penalty shootout in World Cup final history, and I believe first ever final where both happened in the same game. Bravo Zulu, Argentina. And that is a note from our Fozy, who's been on the show any number of times, Christopher Lacey, a former officer over at San Francisco Yacht Club across the bay. Thanks, Christopher, for that note. But that pretty well summed up why that match was so exciting, to say nothing of 6 goals being scored, which for Americans, they always complain about it being such a low-scoring sport. But Bravo Zulu to Argentina. I was, as you know from this show, pulling for them, and I was delighted to see Lionel Messi finally win. Is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time? Better than Maradona, better than Pele, better than tell me who? And I'm sorry they put that Qatarian, is that how you say it? That coat, that Shimta, or what's that called? Made him wear that thing. So it covered up his Argentinian sweater. And that was some controversy. But Bravo Zulu, great fun. What a fabulous match. A lot of comments here. Pele, Fog Machine is saying, Pele is the GOAT, not even close. Okay? Gordon Smith in Denmark saying it was an amazing game of football, probably the right result, despite my prediction. Yeah, Gordon, sorry about your prediction. Was a great football match. What a great event, Gordon Smith and others are saying. What's this? Peter Stevenson down in Sydney. I'll be back in 30 minutes having breakfast at Balmoral with the mates. Okay, well, it's Wednesday morning down there. Enjoy that, Peter. Ricardo Lobato saying, nice to see Henry Menin, big supporter of match race sailing and women's match race sailing, too. I will buy the book for sure. James Frederick Bland down in Texas and Austin saying they're getting ready for the cold blast coming from all the way from Siberia. Julie Aaron's pleased that Julia is home. Steve Gruber, who I heard in the tech check, is a good friend of Henry's. They've sailed together a lot. So, Steve, thank you for that nice comment. Hi, Henry. Now, back on this soccer, but bringing it to sailing, do you recognize this team with the same jerseys? Or similar, anyway. Well, yesterday, I think it was, the Star Sailors League, the SSL Gold Cup, sent out a nice photo essay congratulating the Argentinian soccer team, football team, and commemorating the Argentinian SSL Gold Cup team. So they're saluting them. And of course, that event did not happen this year. We were thinking they got the preliminaries, but then the finals are supposed to happen where? In Bahrain? I can't remember. And that didn't happen. And supposedly it's happening 1 year hence, and we'll talk some more about that. And we'll get somebody on here, K-Art or somebody else, to tell us, give us the latest on the SSL Gold Cup and what is happening next year. Okay, that was Sunday morning. Then Monday, of course, was Hanukkah. We want to wish everybody who celebrates Hanukkah happy Hanukkah. And Henry Menin, who is at least he's part Haganah, I think, old friend, and he's standing by in Philadelphia with his wife, Riddell, as we mentioned. And that was started on, Sunday night, Monday, and then tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, the 21st, at 13:47 Pacific, 21:47 UTC. Finally, the years here in the Northern Hemisphere the days stop becoming shorter, and they start becoming longer again, though the days will become colder, continue to become colder. Same down under, where your days now are starting to get shorter, and you're going to have a nice warm period, no doubt, in Oz and New Zealand and so on. December solstice. We don't call it the winter solstice. We call it December solstice because we are ecumenical with both the Northern Hemisphere and Ricardo and Ted and others in the Southern Hemisphere, plus you Aussies and Kiwis. Bloody hell, this is coming tomorrow and Wednesday through the holiday weekend here, the Christmas weekend. Look at the depth of snow that's forecast. This is just a forecast from a couple hours ago. And look particularly here, those of you in the Chicago area, this purple is 18 to 24 inches of snow, of lake effect snow, because the wind's blowing hard down across the lake. The lake is not frozen, it picks up the moisture. And then here They're talking about 2 to 3 feet of snow here in southwestern Michigan, Lake Michigan's east shoreline. And even out here where I grew up in Ann Arbor, they could get 8 to 12 or more inches of snow. Julie Aarons, it looks like you in Cleveland are going to have some snow. Our friends in Buffalo. Mary Jude Szymanski, you and Henry and so on in Philly, it looks like you're going to be okay. But bloody hell, it's going to be snowy and cold. A white Christmas, at least here in the lower 48 later this week. Massive winter storm expected. Blizzard will snarl Christmas week travel with life-threatening conditions. Okay, a bit of a quick Fosey focus here. We mentioned Steve Gruber is on here watching, and I did not know Steve had sailed with Henry when they were such great mates, but when I was doing the tech check, I was just zipping through the slides with Henry, and he said, "Oh, how do you know Gruber?" We sailed together, and we sailed together in St. Thomas. And Steve works for North Sails, or at least did. I think he still does, in Connecticut. Is on here almost always. And with just a little Fosey focus, because you'll see in a moment, Cedar Point Yacht Club's his home club. That's a Thistle there on the right. That back-breaking boat that I sailed as a kid a fair bit. Won the Midwinters one time, crewing for Bruce Goldsmith. Why is Gruber in the Fosey focus? Well, this new thing called the Weekly Engagement List comes from Facebook. And at the top of the list this week is Steve Gruber. The top Fosey engagement list. There's a bunch of others of you on here. Now, I didn't even know what this was. I was going to call up Clark Chapin and have him look into this for us. What does engagement mean on Facebook? Well, it's any action someone takes on your Facebook page or one of your posts. The most common examples are reactions, likes or dislike, thumbs up or whatever, or hearts, comments, and shares. But it can also include saves, viewing a video, or clicking on a link. So thank you, Steve Gruber, and the Fosey Focus today for being at the top of that list. I'll go back and look at that list, in fact, see who else is on that list. Alistair, Jonathan, Neil, Julie! And see the points? I mean, Steve's fully double the points, or almost, of Alistair at whatever that means, 236 points. Baton Rouge, Peter Stevenson, David Price, who, by the way, he's been laying in the hospital. He just had double bypass surgery. This is Harry Price's dad, Olivia Price's dad, Christian's husband. He's doing well. Had a couple of Facebook messages back and forth, but thanks, Steve Gruber, for being at the top of that list. This week's Fosey Focus, the show's Fosey Focus. Just a show note, because as you know, we have our regular show Friday, and as we do every year, at least the last 2 or 3 years, Julia and I get our Christmas dinner behind us, come down here, warm up the studio, turn on the lights and the cameras, and at 17:30 Pacific Christmas night, which is 01:30 UTC, your Boxing Day morning in Europe, and 12:30 the following day, Wednesday, or Boxing Day rather, it's I guess Monday this year, in Australia. We will cover the Sydney to Hobart yacht race, and we'll do a watch party. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it Zoom or if I'm going to take the Channel 7 feed and just restream it here. Haven't quite decided yet. I'm going to check with Channel 7 and see what they think. Only on Sailing Illustrated Boxing Day coverage. The TV coverage begins at 12:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So at 12:30 is when the TV coverage begins down there. We'll get that feed, and that's when we'll go live. And then at 1300 Aussie time is when the race starts. Rolex Sydney to Hobart. If you would, please support us. Become a patron. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated to keep our equipment up to date, pay our streaming bills, and so on. And then maybe we can also afford maybe not a goose, but maybe a Christmas ham here on the table now that Julie is home. And some of our friends will come in. Thank you for your support. And got a nice from Elizabeth Barrett. A box came from Chicago. I suspect that is a bit of a Christmas present from Elizabeth Barrett, one of our best and longest time Fosey. Thank you for that. Now, our starting line today, in honor of Henry Menin, a class that we're going to talk about when we get Henry on here in a sec, the IC-24, indigenous, I guess you would say. It's the J-24s that have been modded, and they're sailed actively in the Caribbean. And this is from the 2021 STIR, the St. Thomas International Regatta in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'll talk about that class with Henry in a bit. Meanwhile, as always, we like to start with the Coach's Corner. Our esteemed Olympic coach and by now good friend, John Emmett, who reports in from Portugal.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. Thanks for joining me. Final day of racing, so I'm off to the harbour. And one of the important things about sailing is the ability to problem solve. I guess when we're young, you know, we normally just ask our parents, you know, Dad, what do you think I should do? But being a sailor teaches you to think independently and make good decision making, sometimes very quickly. And yeah, situations change, and they certainly have in our campaign. So I'll show you a little bit of problem solving going forward. But now it's time for me to get on my bike. Right, I'm at the boat park now, so I'm going to dismount and walk. It's quite a lot of space here in the 49er section because they're racing later, but the Ilka section of the boat park looks really busy, so I don't want to risk getting attacked by a mask. In fact, I think some of the first sailors have already started to launch, so yeah, everyone's going to be in a bit of a hurry because it's quite a big fleet here. You probably realise, mainly to save money, but also it's nice for the fitness. I'm actually using a bike as my primary means of transportation. Events. Abra actually does have a car, but she's living somewhere else. So we'll look at that in a minute. So yeah, quick look at the boat park as I walk through. So first job of the day is to go and pick my rib up, which is somewhere in here. This is a good occasion to have a bright yellow rib. It makes it much easier to find, but I'm sure I've got a boat in here somewhere. Right, that's my home office for the day. So I'm actually heading out of the harbour now, and you'll see that it's quite flat water, but it doesn't take a lot to get the wave really build up. So this is Villamora Harbour, and the fleet is off and racing to the right, and the 49ers to the left. So you might be surprised to see I'm now entering another harbour. This is because Abu's accommodation is very close to the beach, as opposed to my accommodation, which is very close to where we sail from. So I'm actually going to pick her up from here because I think that's the safest thing to do. Definitely don't want her cycling. As I said, the roads are a little bit treacherous where there's some roadworks, and it probably brings back some bad memories. And also, to look after the joint, it's much happier in tension, you know, pulling a sheet very gently, as opposed to being compression bouncing up and down on a bike. So I'm just going to find a suitable gap here in the fishing boats, and then hopefully I'll find Abu, and we're going to get her over to her boat and get on the water. Just so nice to be back on the water. Right, and hopefully I'll see lots of you on the show.
Another nice vlog, spelled with a V, vlog, vlog meaning a video blog. That's what all the kids do these days. They're vloggers, not bloggers like I was. But thank you, John Emmett. That, of course, courtesy of John Emmett Sailing, getting to the front of the fleet. Nice stuff. Good job. Thank you very much. Lots of comments. The comments are just flowing in today. It was fun. I landed just about the time the show went live on Friday by tape. As I said, we went live to tape and then aired it at a normal time at 1300 Pacific. And then the comments were filling in. I was talking to Emmett by texting, and I said, I wonder if we'll have a lot of snarky comments since we're not on here live watching it. Not a one. A lot of smart, erudite, nice comments as usual from our Fozy and beyond. Thank you all so very much. Madison Harbor Master, who is that? Can't see from the little icon in the picture. Is that Adkins? Steve Adkins? On the same podium with Pele, maybe. That is talking about the possibility that Lionel Messi is the GOAT. A lot of people don't agree with that, apparently, on here. Back and forth, Jonathan Frank and James Bland down in Texas about the weather. Julie Aaron says, I don't really like soccer, but I was glued to it. What a game. Argentina was unbelievable. Wait until 1 week from now through the first week of January in the Sierra Nevada. Might be huge. I guess there's some snow coming here. We need that. We need all that snow here in California up in the mountains. And then it'll melt and fill the reservoirs here in the spring. Snow up in Seattle, Stingray says. What other comments? Back and forth. Yep, J. Frederick Bland talking about the thistle. We're due for 6 to 8 inches, Julie says, there on the south shore of Lake Erie in Cleveland. Steve Gruber saying, yep, the thistle is the best. Sandy Douglas design. I sailed thistles and Flying Scots back in the day. Alistair Murray. Hi, Alistair. He's the executive chairman now of Ronstam, checking in a bit late from Metung, from their home over there. I missed the update on Julia. The update is, Alistair, she is back. She's here in the Beach Street Yacht Club, not at her desk. She just got here yesterday afternoon. All the in-house help is getting sorted out, and Julia's all in good shape. And I expect, with any luck, fully expect she'll be at her desk on Friday. And on our special show Sunday night, our watch party. Christmas night, our time. What else is, I didn't know James Bland was a Thistle sailor as well. Yeah, good point from Fog Machine saying 2 St. Francis Yacht Club navigators will be fighting it out in the Sydney to Hobart 100-footer, Stan Honey and Chris, a.k.a. Lou Lewis. That's interesting, the two of them, and they're dear friends and longtime competitors and also have sailed together a lot. Steve Gruber, woohoo, I'm the top Fozy. I'd love to know the algorithm that figured that out, that BS out. Stingray's asking if John's rib is equipped with optical sensors. Yeah, he does. He hasn't run into anything in a long time on the beach when he's doing his walk-arounds. What else here? Lots of comments. Lots and lots of comments. Yeah, she is, Ed Worley, she is so happy to be home. She'd like to be here with us, of course, and dearly wanted to be here today. She even had, this is how dedicated Julia is. She gets here, comes from the convalescent home after being there these, I don't know what it was, 5 weeks. It was a long time while her broken foot repaired. She gets here. She schedules her cleaning lady the same day. She schedules her hairdresser to come from the salon over on Chestnut Street so that her hair could look good. She went to bed last night with a scarf on to protect her hair so it looked good today when she's over here in her desk. But then there's people coming in and out this afternoon and the home care people, so we just decided it was better. Let's give it another day. Okay, let's carry on. Do you know who this is? Umpire One. That is my longtime friend. I don't think he's ever been on the show, but I've known him since, 22 years. Better part of Henry Menin, sailor, judge, umpire. He's a leader in our sport. He's been president of a couple sailing associations, commodore of his club, and now an author. And we're delighted to have Henry with us live via Skype from the city of brotherly love. Henry, Philadelphia. Welcome.
How are you, Tom?
Never
Great
better.
to see you.
Likewise. Why are you in Philly and not down in St. Thomas? Do you wait and do Philly Christmas in Philadelphia with the grandkids, or what do you do?
Oh, that's basically it. But we kind of got stuck up here during COVID. We got here in March of 2020, and then COVID broke loose, and we didn't want to get into an airplane or into an airport for a couple of years. And then I had some back surgery that kept us up here for a while. So we just were down in St. Thomas, but came back to be with the kids for holidays and so on.
Well, good. Welcome to the show. And before we get into your new book, that is really sounds cool. Looking forward. By the way, you sent it to me, Henry, and last week when we decided to do this segment, it hasn't yet arrived, but I did get onto Amazon and it's probably sitting out there on my stoop right now. I hope some porch pirate doesn't come along and steal it. It's
supposed to be delivered today.
Okay, well, I did get on Amazon and read part of it, and you told me in the tech check. But let's go to your yacht club. You sailed in Philadelphia before you moved to St. Thomas.
That's right. Yeah, we had something called the Schuylkill Sailing Association. We used to sail the Schuylkill River. Mainly, we did a frostbite series, and then we sailed there again in the spring. And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
I think Mary Jude Szymanski has been a member of a club and maybe was talking about rejoining a club. And it was a club on the Schuylkill on the river. So isn't the Schuylkill famous for rowing?
It is most famous for rowing, yeah. There's quite a bit of that. We always made sure we didn't conflict with those guys because they considered it their river, basically.
Yeah, what is Penn, the Penn Rowing Club there, and who else?
Oh, the Penn, there's the Undine and a few other clubs. They're private clubs. They're university clubs. Temple University has a club there. And they hold many regattas, yeah.
Jonathan Frank is asking, where in Philly are you, Henry, approximately?
We're actually right outside Philly in a place called Plymouth Meeting, part of the whole Quaker environment around Philadelphia. So it was Plymouth Meeting House at one point.
Henry, when did you move or you at least take up winter residence in St. Thomas?
1980.
So 22 years ago. At the
42 years ago.
80. Oh, 80. 42 years ago. Bloody hell.
Yep.
And you're a lawyer by training.
Yep.
And you lawyered until when?
Till 1980. Then we moved down to St. Thomas, opened a business, and started doing some more serious sailing year round.
And the reason I was confused by 20 years because it was in about 2000, 2001 that you and Friedel and I met on the Ellison 03. I can't remember if it was Oracle, BMW Racing, or whatever we were called because it kept changing every campaign. The BMW went ahead of the name or behind the name or got out of the name. It became Oracle Team USA ultimately. So tell us about St. Thomas Yacht Club.
Well, it's a great club. It's an amazing club. The number of wonderful sailors that have come out of there. At one point, Tom, out of the 10 All-American sailors in college in the U.S., 3 of them came from St. Thomas at the same time. So they had 3 out of the 10. Taylor Canfield, Thomas Barrows, and Cy Thompson were the 3 on the All-Americans at the same time. And we've had innumerable All-Americans since then. Nicky Barnes, who represented the U.S. in the 470 at the last Olympics. Taylor Canfield, who's been the world match race champion for a while. Great sailors coming out of St. Thomas.
Multiple Congressional Cup winner.
Yeah. 4 or 5
I think
times.
he won it last year or earlier this year as well. And the club, I mean, you had those 2 horrible hurricanes. What were they, Irma and Maria? What were they?
Irma and Maria, and they came within days of each other, and they were both like category 4 or 5. It didn't matter at that when they get up that high. And it really demolished a lot of the island and took its toll on St. Thomas Yacht Club. We lost our dock completely, and there was damage to the clubhouse. The clubhouse, as you see from that, has been restored, and it's
Looks
very
great.
active again. I guess we got pretty active around 2019.
But you got out of there, right? Because I remember pinging you or Friedel. I think Friedel sent me a picture of your flagpole, which, of course, was on the ground or nearly so.
Right.
And now it looks, what was that, 2019?
That was it got restored around 2019. Yeah, we got the flagpole back up. Morgan Avery, who's a local fellow from St. Thomas, great woodworker, great sailor, sailed with Peter Holmberg quite a bit. He put the mast back together, got it back up, and there it is.
But the hurricanes then were 2018?
2017.
2017. Oh, that's yeah. You know, that's right. It's right after we started this show in 2017, and that was one of the first things we really covered. With it, some gal down there that we didn't know came on and said, you know, I'll give you an update. And I this is when I put it on the website, and then she came on the show. It was very, very popular, and she was one of the few people somehow had satellite satcom access or something. But it also wiped out your dock, and this is fairly recently restored, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, that's the replacement. It's in the same footprint. It looks basically the same, except a lot newer. But that was gone, just gone completely. Well,
I have not been to your club because you've never invited me. I'm hurt.
That's right. We're very careful about who we invite to St. Thomas.
And you have a famously good couple of cool regattas. I mean, most clubs have some kind of what they call their signature event, but this so-called STIR, St. Thomas International Regatta, has been going on for a long time, almost 60 years.
Yep.
And it's coming up again here in March, the end of March, the St. Thomas International Regatta. Tell us about that event.
Well, that's been going on, as you say, for quite a long time. And that's the one that Steve Groover and I sailed in, and we won it back in 1989. Look, shout out to Steve. I haven't seen Steve in a long time, not since America's Cup in Auckland, I guess. But at any rate, it brings guys from all over. We get international participation. It used to be part of a Caribbean Ocean Racing Triangle, which was a series between St. Croix, BVI, and St. Thomas. And this regatta counted as one of the legs of that regatta. And it's for the bigger boats. Recently, the IC-24s have been the largest participants in largest class, single one design class. And that's been great. You mentioned the IC-24s. They were the brainchild of a guy born in St. Thomas, Chris Rosenberg, and he had Morgan Avery, who I mentioned before with respect to the yacht club mast, and he had Morgan do all the physical work of putting them together, and they've become enormously popular, you know, with a Melgis type cockpit and some pretty strict rules, no hiking out and so on. And it's enabled new sailors to get into the game a lot quicker.
Let me just say a little more about the STIR here before we move. In fact, we're going to talk about some photos of the IC-24s. But this St. Thomas International Regatta is very popular. It's a weekend, of course, a long weekend in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's a high point for many yachtsmen and yachtswomen from around the world. It's off your website, known as the crown jewel of the Caribbean.
That's right.
It represents an opportunity to shake off the winter dust, although I think people probably get a little dusty down there in the parties, and in preparation for a hard Northern Hemisphere summer's racing. And Henry, tell me about this gentleman. I've met him, John Foster on the right, 57 years ago, apparently started this regatta and still today sails in it. Is that true?
I believe so. John and I are about the same age. He was one of the originators and founders of the yacht club. He's been sailing everything. He was very, very good in the J27. I think he got into the IC-24s, as I recall, and he's been just keeps on trucking. He's a great guy.
Yeah, as I say, I've met him. It was at some kind of a USYRU function sometime, somewhere, a long time ago. But give him my regards if and when you do see him. 57 years. So I thought you were only 55. So you got to be a little older than that if you're the same age as Mr. Foster, and he's been at this for 57 years.
Tom, you told me never to lie, which I did once at the America's Cup.
Henry, we'll tell some stories maybe if we have time, but Henry and I didn't really know each other. I knew he was a good judge and a good sailor, knew of him, and I think vice versa. We ended up together in the Ellison team in the leading up to the 03 Cup in Auckland. And then Henry, we did what, 03?
No, we did 01 first, Tom.
Well, but the Cup there was a 2000 Cup. Were you with the St. Francis team in 2000?
No, I was a judge and umpire in the 99-2000, And then 2001, John Cutler invited me to join the Oracle team. And we went up to, what was it, Ventura?
Yep, yep.
And that's when I first met you.
Okay, so it was in the 03 campaign, in the early part of the 03 campaign, because
Right.
that was, and then we did 07 together?
Well, no, I was back on the other side. I was an umpire and jury member.
Oh, that's right. I did a deal with Hamish Ross.
Yes, you did.
We were the challenge of record, and you're the only umpire that's ever been traded for a future draft pick and some money. No, not quite, but that's right. Now I've forgotten that. We were the challenge of record. The Swiss had won. This is no joke. The Swiss had won.
Right.
And Hamish Ross and I were negotiating the protocol and everything for the next event, which was to be in 07 in Valencia ultimately. And they said, well, why don't you nominate Henry, who you were our rules advisor, then why don't you nominate Henry for the jury, and I'll put one of my friends here from New Zealand, on the jury. And it was one of his law partners. You remember who it was?
I do.
And he's still on the jury. I can hear Fidel laughing in the background.
I can just nod. That's all I can.
Okay. If Hamish is watching, I have Hamish and Brian Willis coming on the show in mid-January to talk about yours
Right.
and my favorite topic, which is sportsmanship and the adjudication thereof in our sport.
Right.
But I digress here. Let's go back to your club, because you have another cool regatta that happens, in June, is it? Every year?
Yeah, that's in June. It started on Father's Day, and it's been in June ever since. And it's, I forget, it's 30-some years old now. And
who started that regatta, Henry?
I did.
You taught me, as a lawyer, you taught me never to ask a question I don't know the answer to, especially in a protest hearing.
Exactly.
So this called the IOR, it's not like the old International Offshore Rating Rule. And this, again, off your club's website. Every club has one event that just gets better and better every year, and ours is the International Optimist Regatta. Sailors from all over the world, age 8 to 15, visit Cowpit Bay for a 3-day racing clinic, a day of team racing, and finally 3 days of racing a few miles offshore in our epic trade winds, the best of the best in junior sailing. Henry, Bravo Zulu, so you started this regatta.
I did with a couple other people. There was a junior sailing instructor at St. Thomas who had been to Florida and saw the success of the Optimist there, and came back and said to me, came to our house and said, I really want to start a regatta here in St. Thomas. So she and I got it started, along with a woman named Varian Aguilar and a guy who not too long ago passed away, a great guy by the name of Bruce Marshall. Anyway, the four of us got this going, and we only had like 13 or 14 participants in the first regatta. We now get about over 100, and the U.S. uses it in preparation for their summer regattas, and it has produced, and Puerto Rico has a lot of kids that come in this regatta, and in one regatta, World Championship in Turkey, Puerto Rico won the World Championship, and a kid, Ian Barrows from St. Thomas, was second. So it promoted and provided us with a lot of really great sailors in the Caribbean who became international stars.
Well, we can see in this shot alone, we can see GER for Germany, PO, I guess L for Poland, is it?
That's Poland, yeah.
And MLT for Malta, among others. So cool stuff. Bravo Zulu to you, Henry, for starting that and getting that on the map. Now, you've had some really famous sailors out of your club. One that I've done a couple America's Cup campaigns with, Peter Holmberg, ISV, again, being the Olympic code for the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Peter, of course, very well known. I saw this shot this morning. I was looking for that mug shot of Homeboy, as we call him. When I was looking for that shot, I came across this one. And that, if people can identify, this is from, anybody can identify all four. Some of you no doubt can. But that's Vasco Viscotto from Italy on the left. This is a 2009 photo. Look at how young Sir Ben looks and how relatively young the other two guys are, Peter and, of course, Sir Russell Coots on the right. This was the Louis Vuitton Pacific Series down in Auckland that we had in the kind of in the interim, everybody wanted to keep sailing. Bruno Trouble wanted to keep everybody on the water, get some promotion and so on, while we fought it out with Alinghi for the 2010 deed of gift match in the trimaran and the catamaran. So I thought that photo was an interesting find this morning on the internet. God, the internet's fantastic. Another famous sailor. Henry, tell us about Taylor.
Taylor's a magnificent sailor. He grew up with us, and he started in the Opti class down there, and became, of course, the world match racing champion. He's now a professional sailor, doing all kinds of events around the world. All-American at Boston College. Just a great sailor, and and a good kid.
And so's his dad, Bill,
Yep.
who's been on this show any number of times. Of course, Henry, you were at one time president of what we call Visa, the Virgin Islands Sailing Association. You all call it that. I do too, only because that's what you named it, Visa. And Bill's been president of that on and off, and I think he's currently been president for 15, 16, maybe 17 years. And whenever he's on the show, I ask him, since he's the president of Visa, if he'd raise my credit limit on my credit card, my Visa card. He says, no, that's a different Visa. What a great guy he is, though. Bill Canfield.
Yep, great guy.
Does a lot of race committee work. Like you, a leader in our beloved sport. We're about 45 minutes in here. If you're just joining us, we're with Henry Menin, who's live via Skype from Philadelphia. His wife, Fidel, who we all know and love, is sitting nearby. We'll get her in the camera at the end of this segment, I hope. She's very shy, she says, but we hope to get her on. And Henry is a longtime leader in the sport, great sailor, who many of you seem to know. I'm not surprised. And also has been of late, although now retired, a judge. He was one of the early umpires and a superb umpire, as well as a great judge and a leader in the sport, as I said, and now author. Before we get to his book, let's go to this IC-24 class, Henry, that we were talking about a minute ago, and that I used this shot at the top of the show in the starting line photo. Tell us about these IC-24s again. How did this happen?
Yeah, well, it's basically a J-24. The hull is the same, the keels are the same, but what they've done, Chris Rosenberg was the inventor of this. They took off the deck and replaced it. They had a mold, and they replaced it with this deck that's very similar to a Melgis 24 deck. And so it's a lot more comfortable, a lot more room. They put some restrictions on it. There's no hiking out. It just sails with a main jib and spinnaker, which keeps
and a small jib at that. You don't use that big honking overlap Genoa.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of breeze in St. Thomas. And a boat like this, to be competitive, you really don't need the Genoa. But at any rate, it also was used because it is so simple and the restrictions are so great, it's used for teaching not only the young kids who are coming out of the Opti class, but also for adults who joined the club who've been there for social occasions or whatever, or the tennis, but now want to learn how to sail. And it's an easy boat to learn how to sail. It's a great sailing boat, and it's very, very competitive. The best guys in our club have been sailing the IC-24. It's very popular in Puerto Rico. BVI has several of them. We used it for the match racing when we had the Carlos Aguilar match race, and it was very popular with both the guys and the gals who we brought down. So it's a very versatile boat, and it's been well used and well liked, and it's cheap because you can buy J-24 hulls for next to nothing.
Yeah, well, it was a brilliant move, and there was some criticism at the time, but just the sheer comfort alone. Ed Worley is saying it looks like a nice basic boat to learn the fundamentals, just comfortable to sail. I had a J-24, Henry, as you know, for a long time in Newport, Rhode Island when I was running USYRU, and I used to come in off that boat and have to go see the back doctor because we had what we used to call fireball back, and then it was J-24 back. Chris Exley, who's joined, says Dave Franzel is instrumental. Dave Franzel? Henry, somebody you know, is instrumental in the IC-24 space.
He was running the a sailing program in St. Thomas for a while. I think I can't remember his name. Bob has taken over that role, but Dave sails down there quite a bit.
Bobby Brooks, Robert Brooks, the director of the St. Thomas Sailing. The only reason I know that because it's in the last line of this slide that I put up. Interesting stuff. So you get 18 to 22 of them at STIR, at the St. Thomas International Regatta. Several teams from Puerto Rico as well as St. Jean, St. Croix, and Tortola. Competition is intense. Yeah, Henry's audio has gone a bit buzzy, but I think that's just Skype. Blame it on Microsoft. But I don't think it's not. It's fine, Henry. It's just not 100%. It was great. Now it's gone a little buzzy. But let's get to your book, shall we?
Okay.
If we have any more problem with your audio, this book is called Eric. It's available on Amazon. I went on and looked up today. Eric is in the line, what we used to call the liner notes with Amazon note now. Eric is a bright young man whose curiosity leads him to explore a world he would have never found otherwise. He's the Philly kid breaking from his traditional background to find within himself a competitiveness he didn't know existed. He was the, quote, natural, unquote, in the single-handed dinghy racing, but would his passion, focus, and drive to be the best in the world be derailed by his passion for Lauren? So it's a love story as well, Henry. What the hell's going on here? Is this autobiographical? Is Lauren Friedel, or vice versa?
Neither. It is not autobiographical at all. My family history and the way I grew up and when I began to sail and so on is totally different from this. And Lauren is not Friedel. It's totally different. It's all from my imagination. There are some people you may recognize that I kind of threw in there from my experiences. I told you earlier. Pete Ives is in it towards the end. There's a quick cameo by a woman I've named Mary Sadler, who is Mary Savage.
The late great who just passed away.
Exactly. And there's a fellow and his wife, Jeff and Sharon Borland, who I've renamed as Josh and Susan Borman. They are great hosts in Annapolis for anybody who shows up to race, and very active in the Eastport Yacht Club and Santa Maria Cup he organizes, which is going to start again, I think, in next fall.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are some people you'll recognize.
Well, your sound has become it's not your fault. I think it's probably Skype's fault. We never had a problem like this, but it is a bit dodgy. Alistair Murray, who's on from Melbourne, Australia, is asking, can you answer a lifelong question for him? What is the correct pronunciation of Caribbean? Is it Caribbean or Caribbean?
I think you can use either. I tend to use Caribbean, but I don't think anybody would fault you for saying Caribbean.
Henry, I'm gonna go here to ahead to some kind of a video. I'm going to play a video and I'm going to reconnect with you and try to, because I want to hear more about this book. So everybody bear with me for a second while I'm going to skip through the end of what is Henry's segment with Friedel, and I'm going to play a video apropos what's going on here on Boxing Day. It's a 4-minute video from let me get down to it, that just came out this morning from you can see it up here now on the big monitor, just came out this morning from the CYCA, and it's about, obviously, the Sydney to Hobart race, which starts on Boxing Day on the 26th. I'm going to play this video and then reconnect with Henry and see if we can improve that Skype audio. Enjoy this video. This guy is also a very cool guy. You talk about cool people in our sport. Have a look and listen.
Unfortunately, it's going to be my last Hobart, and what I'm looking forward to is the usual winning. And I'm happy if the rest of the crews let me have the sympathy vote and actually win. The reason I last Hobart, this will be my 18th, and I always wanted to get to 25, but unfortunately, I've got a bit of a heart doctor that is concerned that I shouldn't keep doing long distance ocean races and suggested I do harbour races, but I'm not really into harbour racing. So yeah, unfortunately this will be my last one, so I really have to win. The professor has been hinting for the last few years that I consider it, and I just fobbed him off. And unfortunately, when I went to hospital last time, which was only a couple of weeks ago, wife and daughter came to the hospital and they actually got to talk to the doctor. So the cat was out of the bag. So that was it. So really it got sort of made for me. I played rugby till I was 30, and it was only when the injuries started to catch up that I looked for another sport, and the Army had gun runner was brand new in those days, which anyway, it's been a lot of years, and anyway, that's where I started on gun runner, and then the America's Cup came up. I think it was '87 when Australia had it over in Perth. And the Army had an entrant in that, the big old timber boat Balandra, which a lot of people have probably heard of. And we did, there was a race from Hobart to Adelaide to Esperance to Perth. And then back again. So I had 3 months off doing offshore sailing in Balandra when I'd virtually just done my competent crew course. So after that, harbour sailing was never really an appeal. It always had to be ocean racing. Well, I remember it mainly because I was cold and I only had a pair of Dunlop volley runners and that orange marlin wet weather gear. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I remember thinking this race is very cold. And but yeah, I still really enjoyed it, and I came back year after year. And yeah, and now obviously the wet weather gear is a lot more improved, makes it a lot more comfortable. But yeah, that one, and probably the other biggest memory obviously is the 98 Hobart. Which, you know, we managed to finish, and yeah, so that was probably the other biggest one. I think luck just has to change at some stage, and you know, we'll have breeze across Storm Bay and we'll have breeze up the Derwent, because we certainly do well in the offshore part down to Tasman Island. Once we start, we're all equals on there. Like I'm still a skipper and that sort of stuff, but the navigator does his bit, Jim, 2IC on the boat, and everybody's got an area of responsibility. Everybody does everything. Everybody steers. There's no one just sort of sitting around just as a trimmer on board. No, everybody's an integral part, so they all feel equal, and we're equally responsible with the results. You know, we all make a decision, okay, let's do this, and we stick with it. So there's no blame or any of that sort of stuff, and it's good camaraderie, and we have, yeah, a fair bit of fun during the, well, I do anyway. But no, everybody's equal. I think that makes a big difference, and everybody, yeah, it just works well together. I think because we're small guys having a go, and we're all Corinthian as well. But it's not just in Australia. I get a lot of emails from around the world, especially England. There's a lot of SNS 34s over there, and I don't know how, but I've become the guru of SNS 34s, of people asking advice and how to prepare their boat and all sorts of stuff, and which is really enjoyable. And we've got a website and we get a lot of attention on that as well. So it's good for the sport, I think. And a lot of the older boats, I think, are sort of getting looked at it again, you know, with if you can afford to bring them up to this standard for offshore racing, it's good for the sport. Before you can win, you've got to believe you can win, and yeah, I really think that we can, and we've come close so many times that, you know, you just want to keep coming back and thinking this is going to be your year, and for me this year it has to be. I still get just as excited today as that one 17, 18 times ago. There's nothing like a Hobart on race day.
Okay, any of you who know the gentleman, I want to have a beer with that guy. How many times did he say, I think it's good for the sport? And we always feature the 100-footers and the super maxis and so on. And then this guy who's been doing this, how many years? Fantastic stuff. Just great stuff. Henry, don't you agree?
I agree. Absolutely.
We seem to have repaired your audio, and I'm now going to go back to where we were talking about Henry's book. Bear with me here for a sec while I do that. Henry, tell the quick story about how we actually met, the protest room we were in. We don't have to name names, but when we were talking, well, it wasn't even a protest room. This was when somebody came to us and wanted to sell us something down there in Auckland in around about 2001 or 2.
Yeah, I had just arrived in California and joined the Oracle team, and I really didn't know very many people. I knew John Cutler, who had recruited me. Anyway, we got called into a meeting, maybe on the second day that I was there, and Dicko was
Chris
chairing
Dixon.
the meeting, and apparently he'd been approached by somebody who had stolen the plans from One World, and I guess the guy had worked for One World, and he was offering them to us to sell. And everybody was kind of like, wow, it'd be interesting to see those plans and so on. And I think you were sitting next to me, and I think I said, this sounds to me like accessory to a crime. we're going to be holding stolen material. I don't think we should accept this. And you chimed in and said, yeah, I can't understand
this. Was that in Ventura, that meeting?
That was in Ventura, yeah.
Yeah, we were training in Ventura and back and forth. The building, we actually built the boats there too. And I won't name the lawyer and who else was running the team at the time, in addition to Dicko and Chris. And Chris, who, to his credit, I don't think he thought it was a great idea either. And he wasn't big mates with the Kiwi who had ended up with the plans from One World, so he was skeptical. And I had quite a set to with the other lawyer. You were our kind of rules advisor guy, and then we had a guy who was doing general counsel type work for the team. And I had told Chris on no uncertain terms that we should not have anything to do with it. And I'd had the experience of the Brits trying to sell them when I was the newly minted executive director of New York Yacht Club's America 2 team in the late 80s, and a guy from England tried to sell me the plans, and I called the chairman of the British syndicate. Hey, somebody's trying to sell us your plans. What do you want me to do? And he said, well, let me get Scotland Yard, and we set up a sting, and the guy got busted. He was some lowly, poor guy, shipyard guy. But nonetheless, I was arguing with Dicko, and then he called the meeting, and I barely knew you. And I'd said, Chris, we can't do this. And then you piped up, thank God, bless your heart, and said, this is going to become, what'd you say, accessory to a?
Yeah, it would be accessories to the crime. We'd be receiving stolen goods.
and they looked at me and they thought that I had somehow hooked up with you and gotten you on board, on side. And it was a pleasant surprise. I wanted to reach over and give you a big hug and a kiss.
I was reticent because this is the first time I had met most of these people, and I didn't want to start a hullabaloo. But anyway,
well, bless your heart, you were right then, and you've been right on. I mean, I don't know how many juries you and I have done as well, Star Worlds and Mac. I don't remember. We've done a bunch of other juries together.
Far 40s, we did a lot of far 40s.
Did a lot of far 40s, and Henry's just one of those guys. Like for his wife Fidel, has got a balanced. He's well balanced, so either he's got a chip on both shoulders, like the Kiwis say about the Aussies, or he's just a bright, solid character, and you always have been. Henry, I don't need to blow smoke up your skirt. But let's get back to your book. I read this liner notes for your new book. Correct me if I'm wrong. I did, as I said, a little research. You also wrote a match racing book for North U back some years ago.
Yeah, John Cutler and I got together when we were still with Oracle. And I happened to mention to him, I said, John, there's really nothing out there for how to learn match racing or how to explain match racing, no kind of a book. And I said, would you be willing to cooperate with me and do this book? And he was more than willing, and great guy to work with, and just a great guy in general. And he said, he suggested the format, which is Henry says as an umpire, and then John says as a tactician and a skipper. And it was fairly popular. We did, I think, 4 or 5 editions. North published it, so it was a lot of fun.
The comments are hilarious. Before we get back to your book, Stingray remembers some of the details about some of the players who were with One World in the campaign, got dinged 2 race points over that fiasco, and then lost to us, Oracle, in the semifinals of the CSS, the Challenger Selection Series. That's true, Stingray. And then we went on and lost to Alinghi, who then went on to beat the Kiwis and take the cup to Europe. But there's one other comment. Jonathan Frank, who is a Fozy from, he's a Renaissance man. He's from I didn't know he was from Philly. He lives down in Houston, Galveston Bay now, and he plays the bass, and he flies for United Airlines, left seat for on 777s, sings like he thinks he's Frank Sinatra. He's a great singer. And he says, only a guy from West Philly would recognize it would be a crime. Those of us from South Philly, however. The city of brotherly love. Jonathan Frank. And he's also a painter, by the way. I'd swing the camera around here and show you. We've got a painting he did of from the 2013 Cup of when the Kiwis almost tipped over. Remember when they almost capsized in that race?
Yeah.
After they tacked and the wing didn't invert. Okay, enough of all that. But Jonathan Frank, I didn't know he was from Philly originally. So I read this so-called liner notes or the Amazon notes. Now, I'm going to read this setup quickly. This is what you would call what, Henry, the preamble?
Yeah, basically, it's it's the introduction to how he got involved in sailing.
Okay, so he could feel the perspiration beating on his forehead, running into his eyes. He wiped it away with his sleeve. It was bloody hot, as they say, down under. His team uniform was soaked. Whose idea was it to wear these long-sleeved and long-legged uniforms today? Nuts! He looked at Etienne standing next to him, I guess a guy from France, wearing a short-sleeved jacket and short pants with France 1964 embroidered on the side. At least his team had some sense. The sun had gone down half an hour ago, but it was still stifling hot, no breeze at all. He tried to look out into the crowd, but the spotlight shining down on them blinded him. His mind wandered. He was thinking of the beginning of his journey 8 years ago. It seemed like yesterday. He could feel himself smiling despite the blasted heat. You keep the language clean, Henry. It all started that magical summer. So what are they, on the podium at the Olympics? What's that all about?
Exactly. Yeah, they're waiting for the medals to be given at the Olympics.
And this is the 64 Olympics, but it takes place in your book where?
It takes place in Australia, although the real Olympics in 64 were in Tokyo, Japan.
And I wasn't there, but it was also bloody hot there as it was the 2020 Olympics in 2021. Okay, so it's not autobiographical. This guy, Eric Greenstein, Greenstein?
Yeah, I guess
who's from Philadelphia, by the way.
Yes, and he lives in a place we call the Northeast in row houses, a very middle-class family, have no idea what sailing is, never heard of sailing. And this kid learns to sail at summer camp, kind of surreptitiously because they don't have a sailing program, but his swim instructor is a sailor and is given permission to sail this boat at a far reach of the lake that they have there. And this kid spies on him, sees him sailing, and he's just mesmerized. And finally, the skipper offers him a ride, and it's downhill from there. He teaches him to sail, and he is then passionately involved with sailing. Will do anything to sail. And you watch him progress for 8 years in a boat called the Streaker in my book, very similar to the laser, which had not yet been invented in my book. I think this laser was sometime in the 70s, and this kid starts sailing in the late 50s. So,
okay, when did you start writing this?
I started writing this book in 1972. And
really?
Yeah, 50 years ago. And I was in the hospital visiting somebody, and I had some spare time and just waiting around, and I just pulled out some yellow pads, and I don't know why I started writing this book. I wrote about 3, 4, maybe 5 chapters and put it away. And I got it on computer at some point, and then it just got transferred year after year after year to various computers. And finally, during the pandemic, Fidel, my wife, said to me, "You've got to do something constructive. You can't just, during this lockdown, you can't just sit here and look at your computer." So I pulled this out, and in 4 or 5 months, I guess, maybe 6 months, I finished the book.
Well, the comments are rolling in now. Stingray, who's got a ribald sense of humor. Julia, we have a Henry on this show every now and then. Julia sitting over there at her desk, when somebody says something a little off color or a lot off color, she gives a finger shake, and I've got to put some kind of a I got to put some kind of a soundtrack to that, you know, a horn or something. I don't know. We're going to get when she does that. Thank God she'll be back down here at her desk, hopefully on Friday. But look at the comments rolling in here. Stingray saying, Eric sounds like a good read. Are there any photos? Is Henry, is this novel illustrated? Are there any photos of Lauren maybe in a bikini?
Yeah, you got to use your imagination.
So it's not illustrated.
It is not illustrated. There is one illustration in the back, which I got from the sailing program for kids in Sea Scouts in Ireland. They had a great little diagram of all the parts of a boat, of a dinghy, which I thought non-sailing readers might need.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's in the back of the book, but that's the only illustration.
Chris Exley is asking, he's saying, sounds like Eric was from Fishtown.
No, not from Fishtown.
Where's Fishtown? Is that a Philadelphia neighborhood?
Yeah, it's a great, well, Fishtown has turned into a very elite upscale place. There's a lot of rehabilitation and restoration of homes going on there now.
Gentrified?
Gentrified would be a great word. Anyway, the Northeast is an area in the northeast section of Philadelphia with a lot of row homes and neighborhoods.
So the kid is from the hood. I mean, he's not from Bluebell. He's not out from in horse country or your suburbs that are really swishy. Mary Jude Szymanski says, I grew up in the northeast section of Philadelphia. Clark Chapin, wow, okay. No, not exactly rushed to publish. Clark Chapin also saying, ooh, a pandemic novel. And Graham Sweeney, who is a clever guy up in northern, he's in Scotland, he's up in the island, Shetland. Sounds like Dirty Dancing, but dirty sailing. Psst, want to buy some plane? Oh, he's talking about that. So no Sea Scouts in the Northeast. Mary Jude said, who's again from Philadelphia, they say Gordon Smith, he's a Brit living in Denmark, they say everyone has at least one book in them. I finished eating, quote, a little book of calm a couple weeks ago. Is this your one and only book, Henry, or are you going to do another one?
Well, of course, we wrote the other book, but I like the expression I've seen in Scuttlebutt a couple of times. It says everybody has one book in them, and for most cases, they should stay there.
Okay, so, I want to push on. I got one more slide apropos your book. Now we've done the setup here. I got to ask before I go to this slide, Henry, is there sex in this? Is it clean? Is it sex? I mean, there's obviously a love interest. And by the way, Amazon calls this a coming of age book, which sounds like it's got sex in it. I can hear Friedel laughing.
Sex in it.
Did Friedel write the sex parts, or did you?
She would have liked to. I kept it. I originally thought that this might be targeted toward young teens, and I didn't want to make it too sexy. But
what do you think they want? That's what they want these days.
Yeah, well, but this book took place in the late 50s, Tom. You weren't even born. And
I wish that were the case, but I was born in the early 50s. So I was around and probably having sex by, well, I won't say. That would be impolite.
I don't think so, Tom.
Well,
anyway.
In any event, Henry, I got you here. I want to go to this next, this one. I got to go to this now. And I don't want to back up. I want to go forward here to the dedication, because I saw this also on Amazon. Friedel, who's sitting next to you, and I hope she's going to join in a second. Friedel Menin is the joy of my life, my wife, my partner, my best friend, and my inexorable supporter in many projects I've taken on in the various paths that I have led her down. She encouraged me to finish this long tome. How many pages is it, Henry?
It's 500 and some pages.
Really?
Yeah.
She encouraged me to finish this long tome, long not only in the number of pages, but also long in the making. She proofread it and made valuable suggestions and contributions. For all she has done and continues to do for me, I dedicate this book to her. And Henry, you brought her into the shot with you. Hi, Friedel.
Hi, Tom. Nice to talk to you. Nice to see you.
Graham Sweeney is saying, it sounds like the 50 Shades of Eric. James Frederick Bland saying, he's saying community standards, finger wag for Tom. If Julia's upstairs, she's up in the Commodore's suite watching this, no doubt. She's probably wagging her finger at me. Tom, are you trying to reprise Blue Lagoon? Peter Taylor's asking in New York. I remember Blue Lagoon. That was a sexy movie. Clark Chapin, I remember hearing that John Grisham tried writing a sex scene in a book. You remember, you probably read, Henry, all his lawyerly books, right, Friedel? John Grisham from down in, where, in Mississippi. He tried writing a sex scene in a book once and let his wife read the chapter. When she broke out laughing, he deleted it.
Exactly.
He deleted it when she broke out laughing.
I got to tell you, John Grisham and Herman Wouk are my two favorite authors.
Steve Gruber, who knows you both well, is saying, in my experience with them, Henry and Friedel act like high school sweethearts. Is that true?
Sometimes.
Is Stingray asking, is her accent South Philly?
It is.
Yeah.
Wow. Well done, Stingray. So we're going to get Stingray hides behind his pseudonym because he is Henry. I will tell you, you know how I every now and then could do what we called when you and I were together on teams. One of my remits, one of my job responsibilities was what they called special effects. Right? Special effects. And that sometimes involved posts to Sailing Anarchy. I never made a post. I've never posted to Sailing Anarchy, not to the main page, not to the forums, but I have friends who did. And Stingray might have been one of them. Special effects. And I'll tell you who else Stingray was. And I don't think you were jurying it by then, but when we were in the 2010 Cup trying to figure out what Alinghi was building, whether it was a catamaran or a trimaran, Stingray, because he worked at Boeing, he's a coder there, he's just recently retired, very smart guy. And I don't know if he got a hold of satellite photography that was in the, not in the blind. I mean, whether it was secret government type stuff or whether, but he got a hold of satellite photography and some other things and was able to see the hard stand on which they thought they were going to put the Alinghi, because they had to pull it out of, in order to sail, they had to pull it out of by helicopter. Maybe this is when it was coming out of the yard, even before they helicoptered it out. I guess it was. And he figured out not only that it was a catamaran based on what he could see in the hard stand from the satellite photos and one or two other things, he also figured out what the length, approximate length of it, a little overhang on either side of where the two hulls were going to be supported. And I went into a design meeting with that information, just tucked away. And they were in there debating. You know me, I don't know anything about the technical side of the sport, at least not much, just enough to make an ass of myself in a meeting. But said they're debating. I said, excuse me, gentlemen, it's a catamaran. And they looked at me and said, go away, you rules guy, you public relations media guy. I said, no, it's a catamaran. And it's about this long. Oh, it is? It's this long. How do you know? I said, well, and then I laid out this diagram. And some weeks, thanks to Stingray and others, and some weeks later, that's exact. And of course, every minute, as you know, Henry, Friedel, every minute that you know in advance what the other team is doing, helps you scale your project, helps you do what you're doing. So there's a little story about Stingray I've never told on this show before. Okay. Stingray said, I found skydiver videos by guys flying down from the mountains. Oh, yes. Now I remember that. Sounds like a great movie idea, your book, Jonathan Frank is saying. Much better than wind.
Much better
than wind.
Was that the one with the, what was it called? The
Whomper.
The Whomper.
The Whomper. We have foes who were in that movie. John Sangmeister, among others, were actually in that movie. I licensed that movie. That was in '92 when I was running the Cup in San Diego then, but that's a whole nother. I watched some of it in the mansions in Newport. They invited me to come watch and film some of it. Not much of it. Most of it was left on the cutting room floor, but some of it was in the thing. Okay. So this dedication to Friedel is really nice. Friedel, tell us about this book. Why, how good are the sex scenes? Did you write them or did Henry?
Actually, I criticized Henry and thought that there weren't enough sex scenes.
You did?
Henry was way back in the 30s, and we had to get him up to the 50s a little bit. We had to remind him of what it was like to be a high school kid.
Well, exactly. I was a high school kid in the late 60s, early 70s, and we were having, I'm sorry to say this, Julia can wave her finger, both of them. We were having, by the age of 13 or 14, we were having our, shall we say, our coming of age experiences.
You got to remember, Tom, there was no pill during this period.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And then after that, then you started worrying about other things. But Fidel, Henry, congratulations on this. We're looking forward to it. I've got one more slide I want to show.
Okay.
Because I found this on your Facebook page. I think, Fidel, you posted this. And we want to say bravo Zulu to you because you celebrated, if I have this right, your 63rd wedding anniversary in June.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Right. Yep, that's absolutely right.
And I've known you both, well, since 2000 anyway. So that's only 22 years. But we have been together in some exotic locales in, Sardinia, judging at the wonderful Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, down in Florida at a couple of events. Did we do a Far 40 Worlds or two in Sydney?
No, I did, but you weren't there. But you and I were together in Germany, I think.
We did a Star Worlds in Germany up cold, and we also did a Far 40 Worlds.
Denmark. We did.
Yeah, with Prince Frederick was racing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And we did something Far 40. I can't remember. Too old. You guys both look great. Steve Gruber is on here saying, Fidel and Henry, you both look great. Gordon Smith is saying the joy of sailing sex illustrated. You might better have titled it "Make Sailing Great Again." Stingray is saying. Is there another book in you, Henry? Fidel had a big part of this, I gather.
This is all Henry.
There might be.
There might be. Is it a sequel to this one, or is it something completely different?
Well, there's one that's completely different, and then I started working on a sequel and didn't like it. I've kind of trashed it.
Oh, so you've already started?
Yeah, well, I did, yeah. I'm retired, Tom. I don't have a hell of a lot to do.
Well, you're never going to retire. Clark Chapin has put the link up to your book. It's available on Amazon and probably all good online bookstores anyway, isn't it, Henry?
Yeah. No, it's just off of Amazon.
Amazon?
Clark, I want to thank you for that. And I should tell you that I've been told recently that on the Kindle version, the ebook, apparently when you get to chapter about 100, I think it is, they, for some reason, I'm trying to get it taken care of, they repeat several chapters. So,
well, they're padding the book. They want to make it longer, give you more.
Yeah, right.
Are they paying you by the page?
Yeah, right. Oh, you'd be amazed what they pay you. Anyway.
Well, let me ask you that because this is a very bright erudite group. We call this sometimes it's a drinking show with a sailing habit. Sometimes we'll go off on some tangent. Usually I will go off on a tangent, but we'll talk about anything under the sun that maybe barely tangentially relates to sailing. But with people all over the world, yeah, Fog Machine's asking, is chapter 100 the sex?
No.
There is no sexy.
Not true. Gordon Smith says who's a Brit living in Denmark. I think I mentioned. He said he was at the Far 40 events in Denmark. Yeah, that was a good event. That was that was a fun regatta. Okay, guys. Just tell us briefly about. There's this nice photo of you with your anniversary earlier this year. Tell us about the self-publishing aspect of this book. How does that work?
Well, it's interesting.
We don't want to know your numbers and how much you're making or not making on this, but none of our business. But you were also, if I remember well, in the printing business, so you must know something more about this than just writing.
Well, I never printed a book, and we were distributors, or we would get things printed for us, but that was all computer forms and so on. That was totally different business. But Kindle. I did try to find a literary agent, and that was really a tough experience. And then I got in touch with a guy by the name of Fatty Goodlander. I don't know if you know Fatty. He's been sailing around the world for a number of years, and he's published umpty-ump books.
Fatty who?
Fatty Goodlander.
Goodlander? Is that a real name?
That's a real, well, Fatty's not, but I forget what his real first name is. Everybody knows him as Captain Fatty.
We got to have him on the show if he's a real
he'd be
person.
great.
Is he a character?
He's probably in Vanuatu or whatever the heck is.
But he's a sailor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Carry
anyway,
on. You were saying though, you didn't get an agent?
I don't know if he has. No, I don't think he does. I'll send you a link for him when we get finished. Anyway, he suggested to me. He said all the books I've written I've published on Kindle, and it's easy, it's quick, and it's you're in control. And he was right.
So that's how you did it. You published it on Kindle, but then somebody you find do a print version, or do they do that, or how does
they do that as well?
They do. So Amazon does that whole thing.
They do that whole thing, and they really do make it pretty easy. As I told you earlier, I'm not very computer savvy, so I had my granddaughter help me publish this book. But other than that, anybody who's got the basic intelligence for a computer can do it.
Is there going to be an audiobook?
I don't think so. It would be much too long, Tom.
Well, who knows? John Emmett, who is, you saw John's segment at the top, Coach Emmett, we call it the Coach's Corner, and he's an esteemed British Olympic coach and a hell of a good sailor. He's the perennial ILCA 6 Masters, men's Masters world champion, yada, yada, despite his relatively young age. And he says you definitely get more per book by self-publishing than the other option. He's written a number of books, coaching books and sailing books, so it's, he's also in this niche market. His wife is the famous Lily Zhu, who's the first gold medalist in sailing from China, and she's over there right now. In fact, she went to the UK. She and John got married after he coached her in the whatever Olympics it was. And now she went to Southampton University to broadcast journalism school, and is doing a lot of, and speaks English perfectly, and does a lot of now translation, live commentary in Chinese, in Mandarin, I guess. She probably speaks 2 or 3 other languages as well, and she covered, I think, the World Cup for China. She does sailing, she does non-sailing, the Olympics, and so on. So, John Emmett. Okay, guys, anything else? Last comment to you.
It's been a couple shout-outs.
I want to give a shout-out to Liz Bayless, who was one of the first people who was not a relative to read the book, and who gave me a great review and gave me confidence to keep going. And she's the world match racing or women's match racing guru, and head of the committee or subcommittee now, I guess, for match racing, for match racing.
Well, anyway, that's right. You were chairman of the ISAF match racing committee for a while, or the women's match racing committee, or?
Yeah, for 8 years, and that's how we got women's match racing in the Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, and that still, people on this show, Henry, still say that event in Weymouth in 2012?
Yeah.
Was the best.
It was in England, so was it 2008 or 2012?
No, it was 12. It was 2012 in Weymouth, the sailing was. Okay. And people say that women's, and I wasn't there, but that women's match racing event, they say, was arguably the best Olympic sailing event ever. And
I agree completely.
The match racing event in Sydney in the 2000 games off the Opera House is pretty good. In fact, the 2 match racing events we had when I was on the Olympic jury in 1992 and 96 in Barcelona, and in, couldn't see it very well in Savannah when we were out in the Tules or out someplace.
Right.
But in Barcelona, it was right off the Athletes Village, right about where the America's Cup Village is going to be in 2024. Okay, guys, thank you very much indeed. I think everybody really appreciates your coming on.
Thank you, Tom. It was great.
And I'm getting texts, which is, when I get a text, that's somebody trying to give me a snarky comment or a very nice comment that they don't want to put over here in the comments, the public comments. But I got a very nice one from Peter Taylor saying, "This is a great show." So they do appreciate, the regulars on here appreciate when we have cool people, cool guests, and thanks very much to you both.
Thank you, Tom. It's great talking to you again.
Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Cheers.
Ciao. Ciao for now. The esteemed Henry and Friedel Menin, longtime friends, turn down the right thing. I'm glad we were able to fix their audio. And by playing that video, which I thought was a pretty cool video too, but we really appreciate Henry and Friedel coming on. And their new book sounds wonderful. I've got a copy, apparently, thanks to Henry and Friedel, who mailed it or UPS'd it here. It should be arriving today, and I'll have a read of it over the holidays, if not sooner than that. Which gets us to this day in history. As you all know, I love doing these. And before I get to the real one, you know what happened back in the 50s on the 20th of December to any of you Elvis fans? And I didn't run it in this segment, but somebody told me that today was the day that Elvis got his draft notice. And being the humble and loyal American citizen, he reported to the civil service and took his draft card, didn't tear it up, didn't burn it, went and I guess enlisted, and then went off and entertained the troops for a number of years. Right, that happened on 20th December in I don't know what year, but do you know what happened in 2007? And again, this has been an interesting year for a whole lot of reasons. Strange year, tough year. It looks like we're getting into a pretty tough segment. Those of you who are already sorry about the war, sorry about what's going on with fuel supplies and so on. And hell, here in the U.S. now you can't find Tylenol on the shelves. But back to some this fantastic news, the Prince and Meghan and Harry notwithstanding. But it was on this day in 2007 that Her Majesty the Queen, the late great, became the oldest ever monarch of the United Kingdom, surpassing Queen Victoria, who lived for 81 years, 7 months, and 29 days. So Henry outlived he outlived Queen Victoria. Julia's outlived Queen Victoria. Her Majesty lived to be, 96? And way back in 07, she became the oldest ever monarch of the UK, the late great Queen Elizabeth, on this day in history. Henry Menin, Friedel Menin. We say what great people, but our sport is populated by people like them, and we're so lucky to have all of you watching in this holiday season, and people like Henry and Friedel who lead and just make the sport better. Full stop. Speaking of people who make the sport better, bravo Zulu to these young men and women who sailed in, mostly young. I guess they're all pretty young, other than maybe one guy from Long Beach Yacht Club. We've been featuring this event. We had James Pleasance with us on the show, a couple weeks ago, leading up to the World Match Racing Tour final in Sydney that ended on the 18th, so a couple days ago. And it was a fabulous event hosted by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, getting ready as they are to host the Rolex Sydney to Hobart, and that event was supposed to be in China, in Shenzhen, and because of COVID in China, they had to move it, and the CYCA put their hand up. James Pleasance moved the event there quickly. He's the executive director, of course, of the World Match Racing Tour, and a fabulous event they did have. James told us it looked like it was going to be breeze on, and it was. We have all these fabulous photos. I'm only going to show three of them, because I played quite a few of them on the show, both last Friday on that live to tape show and also last Tuesday. But they had a terrific series. Look at this. This is not just some foreshortening of the long lens, some of that, but close, tight racing with some of the great sailors in the world. And a good friend, I talked to him at some length this morning, prevailed. That is Nick E.J. I think I left the K out of, I think he spells it with a K. Sam Barnett there on the left, Bradley McLaughlin, Nick E.J., the skipper, second from the right, and Zach Merton prevailed in the finals, beating American Chris Poole, who's from Connecticut. It was a hell of a series. Look at that. They traded wins back and forth, and then in the fifth and final match, Nick E.J. came out to win 3-2. Look, it doesn't get any better than that, and apparently it was, as we would say in Michigan, a real barn burner. Maybe you'd say beyond that, too. Scott Poole, we mentioned, was second, and then in the petit finale, Harry Price, who's also a Fozy, been on this show, along with his mom, Christiane, his sister, Olivia, and his esteemed father, Pricey, David Price. Pricey, who I think I said at the top of the show, has just had double bypass, heart surgery, and apparently he's come out, and his ticker is ticking on just fine. But Harry, who's sailing, I don't know if he's doing Sydney Hobart, But he is sailing, of course, in the 18 in the skiff circuit and doing quite well with Rag and Famish Hotel. Bravo Zulu to them, his crew, Neil Morrow, and some good friends here, Josh Wijan, who's done commentary with us in the Gov Cup, likewise Taylor Balak, and Harry Price. Bravo Zulu guys on your win in the Petit Finale, and of course to Scott Poole, who was second, and Jeppe Borsch from Denmark, who we said when we were talking with James Pleasance, we expected Jeppe Borsch would be good, and he was. So Bravo Zulu to that whole crowd, all three of the podium teams. I won't reprise the names of those we just mentioned, but I will say sailing with Scott Poole was one of the group of fine sailors, Jakob Aschenbrenner, Malcolm Parker, Graham Spence. They were in second behind Harry Price's crowd. And behind, of course, Nick E.J., as he's well known in the match racing circuit in the sailing world. From the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, Bravo Zulu, congrats. Now, there's a picture of Nick in the middle. I asked him this morning, we were texting back and forth as soon as he got up. I guess he's in Auckland. I guess he's in Auckland. I asked him if he was going out if his next regatta was going to be the Warren Jones, or what the kids, I say the kids, all these young match racers call it the Wojo, at the end of January out in Perth. It's a fabulous event. We're talking with Henry about it in the tech check. He's not been out to do it either. I'd like to go out and see that. Chris actually asked, what boats were they sailing in the WMRT? They were sailing Elliott Sevens. And Nick will be leading the charge out there, probably the favorite seed at the Wojo. But Megan Thompson, also from the Royal NZ Yacht Squadron, will be there, as will Ethan Prieto-Lowe, who's from the Royal Freshwater, and Niall Malone from Ireland, and Marcello Torre, also from Royal Freshwater Bay out there in Perth, and a bunch of others. And that should be a terrific event. We'll cover that at the end of January, early February. I asked Nicky J, by the way, if he was going to sail in the Sydney Hobart, and he said, no, not this year. I'm going to spend some time with family and friends here in New Zealand and maybe relax, because he's had a busy year, busy sailing summer now, in the middle of the busy sailing summer down under. I played this video, so I'm not going to play it again, but I really enjoyed this piece, and I want to say also Bravo Zulu to the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, because they're putting these videos out. It's nice that they're not just featuring the maxis and the 100-footers and so on, but nice stuff there in the middle of the fleet. Terrific stuff. Look at this guy, beaming from ear to ear. I want to meet him. I want to have a beer with him. Shane Kearns, White Bay 6 Azzurro is the name of his boat. Okay, that gets us the America's Cup segment, which is going to be the briefest ever. And that's only to say that on Friday, our show before Christmas weekend, I will do a year-end wrap-up on the AC-37 by way of a cup date. And if you haven't seen Richard Gladwell's article that came out this morning, my time, he's done a long, as only Richard can do, long recap using all of the spy video, using all of the, what do they call it, the recon material. But he summarized it, at least at the head of the article, very nicely of where he thinks the teams stand. I won't get Richard on here on Friday, but I'll try to get him on here in due course so that we can go back and forth. He's got a different view, I know, of who's the top and who's at the bottom of the heap of the Challengers and the Defender as a consolidated group. We'll see. We'll do that on Friday, at least, probably not with Richard, but we'll do an AC-37 wrap up. The D block. I see Henry is still there watching this, saying, what the hell is this? He's seen the show. And you know what? This isn't even our normal D block, because it's about Christmas. This is the Christmas season. It's the Hanukkah season. That looks like a Hanukkah bush to me, Henry Fidel, if I ever saw one. This is wine. Henry likes, as do I. We drank a bit of red wine when we were doing America's Cup events together. And this picture is a wine tree, obviously. Now, this is the Irish. That's a Jameson tree. The Irish response to that wine tree. And then there's the doctor. There's a medical tree. This, you can guess from whom. In fact, all three of those photos, those images, are from our esteemed friend, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, who sent those along this morning for this segment. And by the way, any of you want to send your Christmas cards or your tree Jeez. For the next couple shows, I'll run them in the show. Now, this is a fin, obviously, one of my favorite classes, and it looks like an old fin. That N, I don't think, means Norway. I think this is when N meant, when we had the more or less single-letter codes, and I think N meant Finland, because in the days of single-letter codes, G was Great Britain, I was Italy, F was France, so Finland apparently was down the pecking order and couldn't use F or I. So they used N, I think. So correct me if I'm wrong, any of you who know. That looks like a Finnish fin sailing into the sunset and wishing us all season greetings. It was KC was Canada. K was, actually, the England was not G. That was Germany. K was England. And the Commonwealth countries, KA was Australia, KZ was New Zealand. We were U.S. And I think that F was France. Yep, John Emmett's saying in the comments. That's right, John. I think that's right. So I think N, was it Finland? Or was it Hungary? For a while it was, I can't remember. Long ago. Speaking of Hungary, this nice picture, N was Norway, John Emmett is saying. Okay, that makes sense. So it's a Norwegian fin sailing into the sunset. Season's greetings and happy 2023 with our best wishes. This is from Eurosaf, the Continental Sailing Federation in Europe, and their honorary president is George Vasila, longtime dear friend. Henry will know George from Hungary up there on Lake Balaton. Terrific guy that he is. A nice card. I like this team. This is the Canadian Sail GP team, obviously, and they sent a nice card out to the media, to myself. And I really appreciate the teams, and especially the Sail GP teams, America's Cup teams that do this. This from that huge regatta in Italia. What is it, in October? The Barcolana, that huge event. Finland was L. Okay, they're coming now. John's got the codes coming. He had to cheat, but he said Finland was L. Okay, I knew it wasn't F. Norway was N, Finland was L. Good. Okay. Will this letter quiz me on the final? Do we have to take? No, don't take notes. The Barcolana Regatta in Italy. And then there's some other nice ones here that some of you forwarded. In fact, several of you forwarded this one. And Sailing Magazine, the Facebook page, the group, Sailing Group on Facebook, has been putting all of their posts on my Sailing Illustrated page, which is fine with me. I also repost our shows on the Sailing Facebook group. It's the largest, I think the Sailing Facebook group is the largest Sailing Facebook group on Facebook. Did I say Facebook or not? This is courtesy of the famous photographer, longtime friend, Ona van der Waal in Newport, Rhode Island, obviously originally Dutch. I think he's Dutch. And this photo he took in Narragansett Bay. He always does a nice Christmas photo, sent that along. I don't know who did this, but Graham Sweeney may have sent this, but several others of you did as well. Terrific stuff. Alistair Murray, your competitor, sent me one. Competitor and also your dear friend, this from Harcoon. So the weather outside is frightful, but the ice is so delightful. And since our runners aren't slow, I guess is how you'd phrase that. Let it blow, let it blow, let it blow. Thanks, Peter Harkin, and everybody at the Harkin Company up in Wisconsin, where they probably are ice boating by now. Speaking of Wisconsin, Minnesota, the MC Scow is, as usual, our image for the finish line. As we wrap up the show, our third or fourth to last show of the year? I haven't counted. Comments are always welcome, too. If Julia were here, she would say that same thing. Comments are welcome, too, in replay. There's her chair. Hopefully she's here on Friday. I'm almost certain she will be. And please follow, and share. And if you do that, you might become the next Steve Groover, who is at the top of that pecking order at the top of the show, the Fosey list. Also, just that show note again on Sunday the 25th, our Sunday, your 26th down under, and early in the 26th in Europe, we will do our now regular Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race watch party starting at 17:30 Pacific, 01:30 in Europe on the 26th, and at 12:30 on Boxing Day down under in Sydney. Race starts at 1300. Clark Chapin has already shared. I seem to be the only one. Step up, people. Thank you, Clark. Great show. Chris Exley is saying, thanks, Chris, for coming on, and to all of you. Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor. Gordon Smith, smoked salmon, avocado, and scrambled eggs. That sounds good. And I am going to, maybe right now, in honor of getting this show behind us, I may go have a little eggnog with some Mount Gay rum in it for a Tuesday afternoon lunch. Actually, my breakfast. I don't eat till after the show. Regarding the picture of the wreath, Clark Chapin is saying, wow, that must have been a close P.S. Okay. Lots of great jokes, lots of great comments. Thanks, everybody. Get well, Julia. She is well. She's back home. We'll hope to have her down here in her chair at her desk over there on Friday. Please support us. Become a patron if you haven't already. Many of you have. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thanks again, Henry. I know you're still there. Thank you very much. I'll turn your mic up.
Fascinated.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. There, I'll put your lower third in so we know that's Henry Menin in Philadelphia. Appreciate it again. See you soon.
Take care.
Ciao for now, Henry. Those of you who let us have images and video and audio for today's show, thank you very much indeed. And everybody, hope to see you on Friday. And in the meantime, if you can, sail fast. I better have a water too. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.